He walked in for a simple meal. She was just another face behind the counter. Tired, unnoticed, forgotten. But what Barron Trump discovered that night inside a quiet McDonald's would set off a chain of events that neither of them could have predicted. Barron Trump, the youngest son of President Donald Trump, sat silently in the back seat of a black SUV with tinted windows. He had asked his driver, Thomas, to take a different route from his usual errands. "Let's go somewhere normal," he had said earlier that day, his voice calm but reflective. "I just want to feel anonymous for a while." Thomas, a veteran driver familiar with Barron's habits, didn't ask questions. He simply nodded and started the engine. As they pulled into the small McDonald's parking lot, Barron adjusted the dark baseball cap pulled low over his forehead and slipped on a plain gray hoodie. There were no security agents visible, no paparazzi in sight. For the first time in weeks, he felt invisible. Inside the McDonald's, the atmosphere was warm but hurried. Fryers hissed, orders buzzed on screens, and the scent of fries and burgers hung heavy in the air. Behind the counter stood a woman named Clarissa, her apron stained, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She had worked double shifts all week and hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since her husband's accident 2 months earlier. Clarissa didn't notice Barron at first. To her, he was just another teenage boy stepping in from the drizzle outside. She forced a tired smile as he approached the counter. "Hi there. Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get you today?" Barron glanced up briefly, then down again, keeping his voice neutral. "Just a number 1 meal. Coke to drink, please." Clarissa tapped the order into the screen and read him the total. $8.57. Barron reached into his pocket, pulled out a $10 bill, and placed it on the counter. Their hands brushed briefly, and for a split second, Clarissa's tired eyes met his. Something about the boy seemed familiar. But she didn't dwell on it. Not today. There were fries to bag and orders to call. As Barron stepped aside to wait, he glanced around the dining area. A child was crying at a nearby table, his mom trying to console him between bites of her cold burger. A man in construction gear sat with his eyes closed, clearly dozing off mid-meal. And behind the counter, Clarissa moved with robotic focus, smiling politely, apologizing for delays, thanking customers without really seeing them. She looked exhausted. Not just physically, but emotionally. Like someone who was holding 1,000 things together with tape and string. Barron stood quietly by the pickup area, watching her for a moment longer. He didn't know her story. But he could tell something was weighing on her heavily. A weight he knew all too well from a different world. A world of politics, pressure, and people who only saw the surface. Then, something unexpected happened. As Clarissa handed him his tray of food, her hand trembled slightly. She muttered, "Sorry, it's been a rough morning." Barron looked her in the eye for the first time. "I hope your day gets better," he said simply. Clarissa gave a half-smile. "Thanks. That means more than you know." He sat by the window, eating slowly, his eyes drifting back to the counter where Clarissa served customer after customer. And before leaving, he quietly reached into his backpack, where something more than a burger sat waiting. Something that would change Clarissa's life in a way she never saw coming. Barron sat in the corner booth, still watching Clarissa move like clockwork behind the counter. Her energy was clearly running on fumes, but there was a quiet dignity in how she carried herself. He wasn't sure what it was exactly, but something about her felt wasted. Not in a pitiful way. More like a musician playing the wrong instrument. When Clarissa handed him a napkin she'd forgotten with his meal, Barron smiled and said, "Thanks. Do you always work this hard?" She gave a tired laugh. "It's the only kind of working I know. Do you like it here?" Clarissa hesitated, then glanced toward her manager who was busy at the drive-through window. "It pays the bills." "Not exactly what I dreamed of, though." Barron leaned in a little. "What was the dream?" She raised an eyebrow but answered anyway. "I was studying to be a teacher. Got through half my certification before I had to drop out. Life got in the way." "What subject?" "English Lit. Shakespeare, Baldwin, Morrison. I always loved stories that made people feel something." Barron nodded slowly, now genuinely curious. "So why not go back?" Clarissa looked at him like he had asked why the sky wasn't green. "With what time? With what money? I've got a kid with asthma and a stack of bills taller than me." Barron didn't reply. Instead, he stared at his untouched burger for a moment, then took out his phone under the table and sent a quick text to an old family friend, Rebecca Monroe, director of hiring at a local nonprofit literacy foundation. Then he sent another to Daniel Klein, an education policy advisor who ran a mentorship program for single parents returning to college. He glanced back up. You ever teach anything unofficially? Like tutoring? Clarissa shrugged. Yeah, did I tutor some kids in the neighborhood? Volunteer stuff. Helps me stay sharp. Barron smiled. Sounds like you haven't stopped being a teacher. She chuckled softly. Maybe. But I don't see a lot of job openings for underpaid neighborhood tutors. Sometimes, Barron said, locking eyes with her, it just takes the right person noticing. At that moment, his phone buzzed. Rebecca. Send me her info. I've got a part-time outreach position opening. It comes with full benefits and remote flexibility. Barron turned the phone upside down and just smiled. Clarissa had no idea what was coming. Can I ask you something personal? He said. She smirked. At this point, why not? What's your dream job now? Not the one you had at 19. The one that would make sense now. Clarissa leaned back, arms crossed. Something that lets me be with my son more. Something where I'm not just surviving, you know? Barron nodded. I think I might know someone who can help. She raised an eyebrow. You don't even know my last name. He smiled. Not yet. 2 weeks had passed since Barron's quiet conversation with Clarissa outside that McDonald's. He had returned to New York the next morning, diving back into his routines, but part of his mind kept going back to her. The teacher who never stopped teaching, even when the world stopped noticing. It was a Thursday morning when Barron's phone buzzed. A message from Rebecca Monroe flashed on the screen. She accepted. Starts Monday. Just thought you'd want to know. He smiled. Clarissa hadn't known it yet, but everything was already in motion. Rebecca had reached out with a remote learning coordinator position for an early literacy program, part-time to start, with a schedule flexible enough for Clarissa to care for her son. The salary was double what she made flipping burgers. Later that day, Clarissa clocked in for what she thought was another normal double shift. But before she could put on her visor, her manager called her into the office. There's someone here to see you, he said, confused but polite. Clarissa wiped her hands on her apron and stepped out, only to find a sharply dressed woman holding a folder. Hi, Clarissa, the woman said, extending a hand. I'm Rebecca Monroe. I believe a friend of yours mentioned you might be ready for a change. Clarissa blinked. A friend? Rebecca smiled. Tall, quiet, very polite. Didn't eat his food. Clarissa laughed despite herself. Barron. Rebecca nodded. He told me you were overqualified, underappreciated, and absolutely the kind of person we needed. If you're still interested in working with kids, I'd like to formally offer you the position. Clarissa's hands trembled slightly as she took the folder. Inside were all the details. Job description, benefits, even a flexible training schedule. I don't know what to say. Just say yes, Rebecca grinned. Clarissa did. That evening, she stood in her kitchen, still wearing her McDonald's uniform, staring at the folder on the table like it might disappear. Her son peeked over her shoulder, curious. Mom, what's that? A new job. Sweetheart. A good one. Like, no more McDonald's? She smiled. Maybe not for a while. He hugged her legs tightly. Does this mean you'll be home more? Clarissa knelt down and hugged him back. Yeah, baby. It does. That weekend, she wrote a short email. It was simple, no grand words, just gratitude. Subject. Thank you. Hi, Barron. I don't know how you did it, or why you even cared, but you saw me. Most days I feel invisible. Like I'm just surviving, not really living. But that day, when you asked about my dream, I remembered I had one. You reminded me I'm still worth something. That kindness exists, even when we least expect it. Thank you for seeing me. Clarissa. Barron read it quietly, then archived the email. No tweet. No photo. No spotlight. Just a moment of quiet satisfaction. In a world where status and wealth usually spoke the loudest, this time it was empathy, curiosity, and one unexpected encounter that made the difference. Sometimes, a quiet gesture can change a life more than a loud speech ever could. Barron Trump didn't need headlines. Just heart. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful moments where compassion speaks louder than words.